Hello, so how do you change the startup screen of your computer? There are multiple methods to do this. If you don't want to hear me talking about the options and want to get straight to the point of this video, go to this timestamp. The first option is HackBGRT, which is the easiest, however my least favorite. This requires you to have Windows installed. HackBGRT is basically a program that replaces the Windows logo in the EFI partition with a custom one. However, the disadvantage of HackBGRT is that you first see the logo of your UEFI BIOS, which is probably the brand of your motherboard, and then the custom logo after the motherboard has actually started booting into Windows. And if you have a dual boot setup, it only shows the custom logo when you boot into that specific Windows installation. That's why I don't really like it. The second option is directly modifying the contents of the BIOS SPI chip, which is the hardest, however the most compatible. It will work on any motherboard that uses an SPI chip to store the BIOS, and it does not require the motherboard to have an update BIOS option. It even doesn't require the system to have an operating system installed, like Windows. It will completely replace the boot logo of your motherboard. This involves extracting a bin file from that SPI chip using an SPI programmer. Or an alternative, if you have a Flipper Zero lying around with an application installed, you would also be able to do this. Once you extracted the contents of the SPI chip or downloaded the BIOS file from anywhere else, for example the website of your motherboard's manufacturer, you need to put the file on a computer, use AMI change logo to modify the logo stored in that file, and use the two again to flash the new file back into your motherboard's UEFI or BIOS. Some people actually do this without changing the logo to recover from a corrupted BIOS. The third, and in my opinion the most reliable option, is updating your BIOS with a custom file, and that's what I will be covering in this video. It does not actually require the system to have an OS installed, but it's convenient. If you don't have an OS installed, you need to use a different device that runs Windows to put some files on a USB drive. This method will also completely replace the logo stored on the BIOS chip. Alright, now I'll stop talking bullshit and actually show you how to do this step by step. First you will need AMI change logo, which is an executable file like this. A download link will be in the description. And by the way, if any of the download links don't work anymore for any reason at all, like if you're watching this video in the future, maybe it has gone invalid. In that case, comment on this video and we'll put a new one. The second thing you will need is the BIOS file, which you can mostly find on the motherboard manufacturer's website. Since I don't know which motherboard you have, a quick Google search will get you there. Now you should have AMI change logo and the BIOS file for your specific motherboard. If you still have to update the BIOS and you downloaded the latest file from your motherboard's manufacturer's website, you don't have to anymore, because you will flash this to your motherboard, which updates the BIOS, just with a different logo. Start AMI change logo and you should see a window. Click on load image and navigate to where your newly downloaded BIOS file is. If you don't see it, you need to click on this drop down menu, and in my case it's a .cap file, so I need to select .cap. Or what you can also do is all files, so it will show all files in that folder. Go ahead and select the BIOS file, click on open. You will see that this already has a splash logo, which is good of course. So since this BIOS firmware already came with the logo of course, you can download it here and use it as a reference for your new logo. Click on save logo, navigate to the folder where you want to save it, click save, and it should be there. I just opened it and this is what it looks like. Since you're gonna replace it, you need to create it exactly the same resolution, the same bitrate, the same everything. Not the same logo of course, because you want a custom one, but the resolution and size should be the same. I did that with my own logo using Photoshop as well as Microsoft Paint to get the bitrate and resolution right. The easiest way to do that is right click on the splash file that you got from AMI change logo, add it with Paint. Next to that you need to open another Paint window with the custom logo you want to add in. If it's way bigger than the resolution that it needs to be, take note of the resolution of the original splash file. The second one after the X, which is the size and height, you need to apply it here. So your custom logo, click this icon, select pixels, make sure it matches the vertical size. Hit Ctrl A, Ctrl C to copy, go to the original splash window, Ctrl V to paste, and make sure it's centered. I know it's nearly impossible to get it exactly in the center because Microsoft Paint is not really good for that. I prefer to use Photoshop for that, but I assume you all don't know how to use Photoshop or don't own Photoshop. But this is not going to be a photo editing tutorial, so I'm sorry for anyone that does want the logo to be exactly in the middle. If you don't, create a new layer, Ctrl C to paste, get it somewhat in the middle, and delete the original layer. Maybe add another layer to create the background completely black. Just use fill, delete the original layer, and this is definitely not perfect. By the way, feel free to use any photo editing software you prefer, as long as it matches the resolution, bitrate and the size. this. Once you finally got your logo file, go back to AMI change logo. Next to select BMP file, click browse. Navigate to the custom splash file. Since my original splash file came out as BMP, you need to select either BMP or all files. Then select your custom splash file, hit open. Replace logo. Okay, now you may have noticed that it didn't create a new file, rather it modified the original file. So now it's ready. Now we can use this file to update our BIOS, and it should have changed the logo. How you update the BIOS actually slightly depends on the manufacturer and model of your motherboard, but most of them are the same. I just plugged in a 2GB USB drive. Make sure to format it to FAT32 if that's available. If that's not available, that means your drive is larger than 32GB. In that case you need to select exFAT. Your drive is now formatted. Copy the BIOS file to the USB drive. Now reboot your computer and enter the BIOS setup utility. Again, how you do this depends on your motherboard. In my case it's just spamming either delete or F2, and once you're there, update the BIOS. If you have an Asus motherboard, the BIOS setup utility should look similar to this. I unfortunately can't record my screen if I'm not booted into Windows, which means I also can't record my BIOS setup utility, so I'm going to show you a couple of screenshots from different sources.
If you're using the UEFI interface, go to Advanced Settings, then enter ASUS Firmware Update. Select the BIOS update file from USB drive. Confirm the update by selecting Yes to proceed the update. The BIOS update will begin, showing a progress bar with multiple restarts.
If that's all done, reboot your computer and it should show your new logo. Thank you for watching.